All right, guys. If you could do me a favor and head to the link after bell work, it's going to take you to your horoscope. And I want you to read your horoscope, and I want you to tell me whether or not your horoscope matches you, like your personality or your day. I'm going to take a moment and read you a horoscope, but I'm not going to tell you which sign it comes from. All right? So this person is dramatic, creative, and outgoing. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to read you a horoscope. This dramatic, creative, and outgoing sign has the keyword magnetism for good reason. Fiery and self-assured, their charm can be almost impossible to resist. Whether it's time spent with family and friends or efforts on the job scene, they're going to bring a lot to the table. Can you tell which one that is? That's their general description. Now I'm going to read you their horoscope for today. It says, calm down today and be careful about accusing someone of something when you don't have all the facts. Keep your wrath under control. If you strike out now, you may find that you lose their respect forever. There are no guarantees on a day like today. If there are conflicts that you need to work out, at least make sure that it's done in private. Now I want you to pick which sign do you think that is. Now that you've chosen, I'm going to tell you that there's no way to tell because that particular horoscope could literally be anybody. It applies to everyone. That is actually my horoscope from like 5 years ago. It's a Leo. But it could have been a Pisces. It could have been Aries. It could have been literally any of them. They're just kind of made up. Real quick, small review from what is a constellation? It's a group of stars that kind of look like a shape a little bit to us. But if you were to change where we're looking at those stars from, like from a different angle, they are not going to look anything like our little picture. There are 12 of them that as the Earth orbits around the sun is going to cover up different parts of the sky. And if the sun is covering up a certain constellation, it's known to be on what's called the path of the ecliptic. And if you're one of those 12 constellations, you are a zodiac sign. And those are the Capricorns and the Aries and the Sagittarius. Those are the ones that everybody knows. What's the difference between astronomy and astrology? I'm going to send this little video to my mom after because she apparently doesn't know. Astrology is the study of where stuff is up in space. So the sun's there, stars are there, the moon's there, planet's there. And how does that affect us here on planet Earth? If the sun is here and Mars is there, obviously that means if I'm a Leo, I'm going to have a good day, right? No. It's basically trying to look at stuff in the sky and figure out how that affects things here on planet Earth. It's just kind of made up. However, what is astronomy? Astronomy, there we go, is the scientific study of what's happening up in space. So why is Mars there? Because it orbits the sun because of gravity. You can calculate where Mars is going to be. You can calculate where it was. You can calculate why it is a certain distance from the sun at a certain speed. You can calculate how long it's going to take to go around the sun. You can figure out what causes the sun to shine, nuclear fusion. You can figure out what's going to happen to the sun in the future. It's going to get real big and swallow Earth. You can figure out how far away things are from each other in space, really far. So if you are taking actual science and applying that to what you see in space, that's astronomy. If you're just kind of saying, oh, the moon's there and Mars is there and Jupiter is there, so there's going to be a famine, that's just making stuff up. That's astrology. Let's see. So let's go over astrology. We're going to go over both of them, kind of figure out what the difference is. Where did it begin? It began in Babylon thousands of years ago, and then it was taken to Persia, which is modern-day Iran, and then it was taken over to the Greeks, and then the Romans. And the Romans are the ones that kind of, we still have their names. Mars, Jupiter, Venus, those are all Roman names. The signs of the names of the constellations are Roman names. So Ursa Major is in Latin. That's Roman. We use Roman stuff. Before the scientific method, why were people doing this? Well, they would look around and see things happening, but they didn't know how to test why. So they would look around and say, oh, well, winter's lasting longer, or there's a famine, or there's a drought, or a forest fire, or whatever is happening. We're being invaded by the neighboring country. They would try to figure out a reason why that is happening. And they'd look up at the sky and say, well, Mars is there, the moon is there, the sun is there. Obviously, that's why all this is happening. So it was a way for people to kind of rationalize what they saw in their world before we figured out the scientific method. If you notice that the sun, as the Earth orbits around the sun, is going to pass through certain places in the night sky or cover up those places, that's the plane of the ecliptic. And if you are one of those special signs, I'm repeating myself, you're a sign of the zodiac. If you were born while the sun was covering up, let's say, the constellation of Leo, obviously that's going to have some impact on your life. That's going to affect your personality. That's going to affect what you do, what kind of job you're going to have. If you're a little prince or princess, that's going to affect how you are as a ruler. If it's time to go to war and the sun is in the constellation Leo, that's going to tell you how the war is going to go, right? Right? Yeah. So if the sun is in the constellation Leo, the person that's born, all 100 million, nowadays there's 500 million of them. There's so many people on Earth. They're all going to have the same personality. They're going to be courageous. They're going to be strong. They're going to be, they're going to have the traits of a lion. I don't know what the traits of someone with a fish. Maybe they hold their breath really long. Or a crab. They have really strong hands. I don't know. But even the Leo, like I'm a Leo, but male adult lions actually eat their cubs. I don't want that trait. So not even all the traits of the animals are passed on. It's kind of just made up. So the sun was in the constellation Leo when I was born, from the Earth's perspective. So we have September. So August is right here. This is a review from yesterday, which means if you are on Earth and you're looking out towards Leo, the sun is going to be in the way. That's why I would be in the constellation Leo. You actually need to wait until later on, like November, December, January, and then you can turn around and you see those stars in Leo. You can't see them in August. The other cool thing is the Earth wobbles. So if you take a top and spin it, it'll start to wobble, kind of like this. And the Earth does the same thing. The Earth is spinning, but the North Pole is going to wobble, which direction it's pointed at. And it does that because of the gravity of the other planets. And it takes a very long time. It takes 26,000 years. It's called precession, and we'll go over this later this year. But because the Earth's North Pole is wobbling, it's not pointing at the same place today that it was 2,000 years ago when the Babylonians made all this up. Which means the Babylonians said, oh, if you're a Leo, these are the traits that you're going to have, and this is how astrology works. But the Earth was actually pointed somewhere else. So we're all off by one sign. I'm not a Leo, I'm actually a Virgo. Because 2,000 years ago, at that time of year that I was born, the sun would have been in the constellation Virgo, not Leo. So if you know your birth sign, I just want you to know it's wrong. It's not. You're off by one. Something else that ancient Babylonians, ancient everybody's noticed, the stars would move throughout the year, but there were some other things that moved very fast. In fact, they would move in just one night. And so they called those wanderers. And we still use that word today. We call them wanderers, but their word for wanderer was planet. The couple planets that you can see with your naked eye, they move pretty fast. They're pretty bright. And so they obviously are going to have an impact on what's happening here on planet Earth. Just like the sun is going to have an impact, and the moon, the two brightest things that you can see in the sky. A lot of religions had the sun and the moon as central parts of that religion. So you start taking the sun and the moon and the planets and the stars and putting all of that together and trying to figure out what's happening in your world. Why is there famine? Why is there disease? Why is all of this stuff happening? Obviously, it's because of where these things in the sky are located. They didn't have any other explanations. Now we know that disease happens because viruses are transmitted when people cough and sneeze, and so we have to wear masks and wash our hands and stay 6 feet apart. They didn't know all that back then. So it was because Mars was there and the sun was there. That's why people kept getting sick and dying. If an astrologer knew where things were located when somebody was born, they could tell what that person's life would be like. And if that person was a king or, well, a prince or a princess who would later become a king or queen, you can tell whether that person's going to be a good ruler or a bad ruler. And so ancient astrologers were actually very sought after. You might call them a vizier or, I don't know, a counselor or an advisor, but they basically could tell the king or queen to go to war, to not go to war, to raise taxes, not raise taxes. What is their daughter or son going to be like when they grow up? Should they kill their wife? Should they not kill their wife? All based on where things in the sky are located. Which means, let's say a king wanted to go to war, they would call in their astrologer, and their astrologer would say, yeah, it's the right time to go to war based on what's in the sky. And so they go to war and the country loses. And, well, most often that astrologer is now going to lose their life. So it could backfire tremendously. However, if they were right and you go to war and you win and now the country's rich, that astrologer who told you to go to war is going to be a very rich person. So it's a very high risk, high reward type of job. Astrologers today, they just make stuff up that fits everybody. So that horoscope that I read at the beginning of class that was mine from like 5 years ago, that could fit everybody. It literally could. They make them general enough that it fits everybody. Most people, though, don't look the next day to see if their horoscope was correct. So you all read your horoscope at the beginning of today, and you're like, yeah, that fits me. Are you going to check tomorrow to see if it was right? Like the horoscope that I read said if you have a problem with somebody, you need to talk to them about it. Am I going to go back tomorrow and say, did I talk to somebody about a problem? No. You never go back and check your horoscope. Nobody does. Whenever somebody says that they have to make a tough decision or going through some stress, like everybody is always going through that. Everybody is always going to have conflict. Everybody, people always find the things that they agree with in themselves. Like, you can literally write a horoscope about anything for anybody because people are going to find that in their life somewhere. So why is astrology not a science? It's not derived from natural laws. There's just making stuff up as they go. They don't do any research. They don't do any experiments. They don't check to see if they were right. They just kind of guess. And, of course, you might guess correct sometimes. And they're like, see, that's proof. I know what I'm talking about. But they never kind of talk about the times that they were wrong. Most of the horoscopes that they write are so general that they fit anybody. And people find any trait in themselves. If I were to say, oh, you're a very outgoing person who sometimes likes to be introverted and be alone, and you're very courageous, but sometimes you're scared of being around a lot of people, and you have a big decision coming up, and that can be stressful, and that decision is going to affect not only you, but others around. Like, anybody can find that in their life. Of course, people are going to have decisions coming up and be stressed. And sometimes you like to be outgoing and sometimes you like to be alone. Like, it's literally everybody on the planet. So they just make stuff up. My cat agrees. If a horoscope's wrong, most people just skip over that sentence. They only focus on the things that are correct. My kitty cat wants to have his head scratched. What is astronomy? It's a science that's based on tested theories. It can make predictions. Oh, Mars is there. I predict that in a month it's going to be there. How do I know that? Because I know how strong gravity is. So I get your butt off the screen. So if you can make predictions, that's what makes something a science versus not a science. If you can do an experiment, that's what makes something a science versus not a science. You can do that in astronomy. You cannot do that with astrology.
You probably know your sign, or do you? Try this. Wait for your birthday, then stay up all night and watch where the sun rises. It will pass in front of one of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. They say I'm a Sagittarius, so on my birthday you might expect the sun to rise in the constellation Sagittarius. And it did, 2,000 years ago, when the Babylonians made all this up. But it doesn't now. In the last 2,000 years, the Earth has wobbled like a top. So now on my birthday, the sun rises in Scorpio, not Sagittarius. So maybe you'd have to be a Capricorn to be a Sagittarius, and Scorpios would have to be Libras. See, astrologers are off one full sign. In 2,000 more years, they'll be off 2 signs. But they don't seem to care. So, in these reflective moments, I ask myself, am I a fun-loving Sagittarius or John C?
So that's my favorite part of the school year, if you guys were in class, but you're not, so I wish I could have seen your faces right there. A couple questions to ponder about astrology. What's the likelihood that 1/12, so there's 12 signs, then it means everybody on the planet Earth was born in one of those 12 signs. 1/12 of the world's population is having the same kind of day or has the same type of personality. Probably not very good. Why is it the moment of birth that's crucial and not conception? What if you have a C-section? Is that the doctor changing someone's sign and therefore changing their personality? If astrologers are as good as what they say they are, then why are they not richer? Why don't they play the stock market or play the lottery if they can tell the future? Should we condemn astrology as a form of bigotry, judging others based on something that they have no control over? We already do that, whether it's nationality or race or sex. Like, we already put people into enough groups and then judge the heck out of them. We don't need to do that. Put people into more groups and then judge them. That's the wrong direction, in my opinion. I think it was 1830 and 1830 something and 1850 something is when we found Uranus and Neptune. So were all of the horoscopes done before those two planets wrong? Because they didn't know about those two planets, and therefore any horoscope that they did, not taking those into account, should have been wrong. What about when we found Pluto in 1930? Does that mean everything before that was wrong? Or what if when 2006 rolled around and we took Pluto away from being a planet? Does that mean that all of the horoscopes done in 2005 were wrong? No, it's just a bunch of made up stuff. Back to constellations. Just as a quick little reminder of what those are, they are shapes in the sky. You can see here's Draco, little dragon, Ursa Minor, which has the little dipper in it. Wondering if you guys can see this constellation. I want you guys to write down which constellation you think that is. Obviously, that's the Bear, Ursa Major. How do you not see that? Like, literally, how do you not see that? It's right there, the Bear. I don't see it either. I think these people were completely drunk or some other mind-bending substances, because there's no bear in the sky to me. I think it's just, yeah. Anyways, Do you guys see this one? What constellation do you think this is? This is actually two. Orion and Taurus, the bull. So here is Orion's belt. I can kind of see that. Can't see the rest of him. There's the face of the bull. Yeah, right? Because there's the rest of the bull. Up here is the Pleiades, which is an asterism. It's a group of stars that's not a constellation, it's part of another one. So the Pleiades are actually in the constellation Taurus. And you can actually see the Pleiades right up here. So what are the Pleiades? It's actually a whole bunch of blue supergiant stars that you can see with the naked eye. They're clumped together, and people used to use them as a sight test. If you could count all of them, you could be a scout in the army back in Rome. Now that we have telescopes, we know there's more than just 7. They're also, like, their nickname is called the Seven Sisters. And there's a little story that goes with them where there are 7 sisters who were trying to be sold by their father. So they all ran away together. And they ran up a mountain, and their father was chasing them. And some witch or fairy or something took pity on them, turned them into stars so they could fly up into the sky to get away from their father. So there are now 7 sisters up in the sky. That is the Pleiades. They are an asterism. Here are a couple other constellations. Cassiopeia. Yep, that's okay. We have Cephas. Lynx, which is a cat. Yeah, I see that, right? Pegasus, the winged horse, right here. You see the winged horse. Andromeda, which is a girl. Taurus, there's the bull. I see the bull. No. This one actually has, there's Andromeda. You can definitely see the lady right there, right? This one and this picture actually has my favorite constellation in it. And that constellation is Triangulum, because it is the only constellation of the 88 that actually looks like what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to look like a triangle, and it looks like a triangle. It's the only one. Because Andromeda, I'm sorry, but that doesn't look like a lady to me. Even Orion, like, here's the belt. All right, fair. But then, like, how do you get his club raised above his head with one star up here? And there's a shoulder, there's an ankle, there's a knee. Okay. His shield is somewhere out here. But if you go back to Orion from before, like, okay, now it's his shin down here. And his club has stars in it. But over here it doesn't. Here he's standing on his leg. There he's kneeling. Even astronomy textbooks don't know what the heck they're supposed to look like. So, unless you're Triangulum, these little pictures are complete trash, in my opinion. Now, a constellation is an area of the sky. So this little cutout is the area that makes up the constellation Triangulum. Here's Aries, this area here. That's my personal opinion. I want you to answer this question. What's the path that the sun, moon, and planets follow through the constellations? The ecliptic. We've talked about that a few times. Stars in a constellation are in the same part of the sky. None of the others are correct. Now I want you to do an exit ticket. I want you to compare and contrast my new science of jetology. Not astrology, jetology. Astrology is all of the planets and stars and where they are located are going to affect the rest of your life. Jetology says that the moment you're born, the location of all the jumbo jets in the world are going to affect your life. Obviously. So I think mine actually has more to back it up than astrology does. But I want you to read this little blurb, and I want you to respond. Compare and contrast jetology and astronomy.